everyone! So today Jess asked me to defend 5 of my Harry Potter opinions, so let's get into it. Number 1, Neville should have had a much bigger role in the prophecy. Now everybody knows that Neville is my favorite character, that's no surprise at all, but I think that he totally got the short end of the stick. I personally think that since Neville could have been the chosen one, he should have had a much bigger role in Voldemort's downfall. Yes, he did kill Nagini, but I personally don't think that's enough. Let's look back on the prophecy. It's basically talking about a boy that's born at the end of July with parents who have thrice defied the Dark Lord, meaning Harry or Neville. Obviously, Voldemort marked Harry as his equal, and therefore Harry was the chosen one, but Neville could have been. So I think that Neville either A, should have been part of the trio. I'm not trying to kick Ron or Hermione out, but I think Neville should have been part of the main group and helping to destroy the Horcruxes and or have a one-on-one face-off with Voldemort. Throughout the series, we see Neville as this timid boy who struggles with confidence, but he does have that amazing growth leading up to the end where he totally slays at the battle and kills Nagini and is so triumphant. But I feel like him doing that at the end was just like telling the reader, hey, Neville isn't nothing after all, like he's totally worth it. And I think that not many readers appreciated him until the end. So I think because Neville is so intertwined with the prophecy, that he should have had a much bigger role throughout the series, not just in Deathly Hallows. Speaking of Deathly Hallows, this brings me to my second opinion, which is that Deathly Hallows is the best book. Now, a lot of people I know are huge fans of Prisoner of Azkaban and Half-Blood Prince, and Half-Blood Prince is definitely a close second for me. But Deathly Hallows is the best one for many reasons. First of all, it's the best wrap-up to the series. All along from book 1, we knew that there would be some kind of face-off between Harry and Voldemort, and because the series is called Harry Potter, and it's all about him, we know that he's going to be triumphant at the end, which he is. I think Deathly Hallows is so incredible because we see many aspects of the Wizarding world. The other books in the series are so focused in Hogwarts, which makes sense. But in Deathly Hallows, we get to see inside the Ministry of Magic, when the trio go with the whole mission to get the locket. We have the whole camping scenes where they're traveling all around Britain. We get to go to Godric's Hollow, which is one of my favorite places. We get to go to Shell Cottage and the whole Gringotts break-in and all of that. We get to see so many cool things in that book that we don't in the other books because we're mostly at Hogwarts. We also see the growth of the characters to their full potential. I already talked about Neville, but let's talk about some of the others. Ron is a big one for me. We see all of his insecurities when he leaves Harry and Hermione, but then he comes back, and I think that throughout the whole series, we see Ron struggling with himself and who he is and feeling worthy. But in Deathly Hallows, we see him realize that, hey, I can be who I am, it's fine, I'm still amazing. And he kills the Horcrux in the locket with the Sword of Gryffindor. He stays by Harry's side to the end. Even though he did leave for that one moment in time, he does come back and fight with Harry in the end. So I think Ron is a great example of one of the characters that we really see who he really is in the last book. Also, Hermione really shines. Throughout the whole series, we see her being so tied up with her education, and throughout the series, we see her loosen up a little bit and be more fearless and take risks, but in Deathly Hallows, she's all in. She does everything possible to help Harry. She has the amazing plan with the beaded bag and stays by Harry's side even when Ron leaves, so I think we see a lot about Hermione's growth in this book as well. Also, Ginny and Luna. Ginny and Luna became 2 of the most supportive characters to the Golden Trio along with Neville. And we see their dedication, keeping the fighting and Dumbledore's army alive while the trio was off hunting for Horcruxes, and during the battle we really see them shine. And I think it's really important because Luna's kind of seen as an odd girl and Ginny is Ron's little sister for a lot of the book, but at the end they're really their own characters and they're really strong and they show that fearlessness, and that's truly who they are. The last thing I'm going to say about Deathly Hallows is, well, the Deathly Hallows. The Deathly Hallows are the most fascinating magical objects in my opinion. And the reason why they make the last book so incredible is because we see how it ties into everything else in the series. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it now, but there's a whole thing that Dumbledore is a metaphor for death, and that Harry being descended from the third brother and having the invisibility cloak ties him into that ancient legend or story of the Peverell brothers. And looking back throughout the whole series, we see these themes and parallels, and that all comes true in the end because Harry had the choice of Horcruxes or Hallows, and he knew that it was most important to go after the Horcruxes and not the Hallows because that's what Dumbledore told him to do. When he had the choice of going to Gringotts to get Hufflepuff's cup or following the lead with the Elder Wand, he chose to go to Gringotts. And I think that the whole clash of Deathly Hallows versus Horcruxes shows a lot about Harry, and it offers a very interesting plot line for the last book. So in conclusion, Deathly Hallows is the best book. We get to see so many amazing places, and Deathly Hallows are in there. We see the growth of all the characters, and it is an amazing wrap-up to the best series. Moving on, the third opinion I have is that Neville and Luna should have gotten married. First of all, Neville and Luna are so perfect together, and if you want to argue with me, well, go ahead and try because it's not going to work. Neville and Luna are the odd ones in the series. They're not as confident and they're not as accepted. So when you have people like that who feel like they're not as good as everybody else, they gravitate toward each other. And while we have Harry, Ron, and Hermione and Ginny, who's totally badass and like for it all, Neville and Luna seem to hang back a little bit, and we see them stick together. Like in the one scene when they're in the compartment on the train, Harry's hanging out with Luna and Neville until Ron and Hermione come. And I think that's like incredible. That's a great example of how Luna and Neville are like seen together often. And thinking about it too, like when they go to the Ministry in Order, it's the trio and Ginny, and then Neville and Luna come. So they're always together, and I think they're perfect for each other. Like looking at who they ended up with, Neville ends up with Hannah Abbott. We don't see any interactions of those two at all. It's freaking random. I'm sorry. And like honestly, what makes me so mad is that I think like the decision to put Neville with Hannah was just based on, oh, Hannah's a Hufflepuff and therefore she's really nice and would be good with Neville. And also like we really only see Hannah in herbology classes. And so because Neville loves herbology so much, it was probably like, oh, Hannah was really introduced in herbology classes and she's a Hufflepuff and therefore Neville should be with Hannah, which is total BS. On the flip side, that Luna marries Rolf Scamander, who is Newt Scamander's grandson. This is completely random. Newt Scamander is not even part of the main Harry Potter series, and it's so frustrating to me that it was decided for Luna to marry this character that's the grandson of the main character of Fantastic Beasts and the whole spin-off franchise. So I disagree with the whole pairings, and I think that Neville and Luna would be absolutely perfect together, and I'm super sad that they did not end up together, but in my headcanon, Luna and Neville are living happily ever after. Next, I'm going to talk about, for my fourth opinion, that the reason why the Dursleys hated Harry is not because he was a Horcrux. I know this is a big theory that has been bouncing around for years, but I disagree, and I have many reasons why. First of all, the Dursleys hate Harry. Ever since Petunia was younger and found out that Lily was a witch and got to go to Hogwarts and go to the magic school and everything, like, Jess Petunia was super salty and was a total bitch to Lily But above all of that, she was jealous. She even wrote to Dumbledore to see if she could get in. So that was just jealousy from the beginning. She was jealous that she couldn't be a witch too, and she was jealous that their mom liked Lily and was happy there was a witch in the family, blah, blah, blah. So honestly, she hated Lily from the beginning. Because of that, when Lily fell in love with James, Petunia hated him too because he was a wizard. And then moving on with that, like, obviously Vernon didn't know Harry or really the Potters. I mean, I guess he knew the Potters because of Petunia, but, like, he doesn't like them either, so I doubt they hung out for, like, family time and stuff. But since Petunia hated Harry and the Potters, obviously Vernon did too. And Dudley is just a spoiled little brat, so obviously he hates Harry too. So it's definitely not the Horcrux, and, like, also Harry comes in contact with so many people throughout the series. If he was a Horcrux, everybody would hate him. And especially, like, wizards sense those things way more than muggles. Yes, like, looking at Dementors, muggles can sense their presence, but the wizards are all in with the magic. So if Harry being a Horcrux, if the wizards didn't sense that and hate his guts, then there's no way the Dursleys could have, because they are muggles. So in short, the Dursleys do not hate Harry because he's a Horcrux. Finally, the last opinion I have is that Flitwick is so underrated. He is the most adorable professor, tiny little Professor Flitwick standing on his books to see over his desk and being so skilled at charms and so kind. Like, if I could pick any of the professors to hang out with, it would be Flitwick. Yes, McGonagall is badass and she'd be super cool to hang with, but Flitwick seems like the most down-to-earth person ever. And he's gotten paid so much dust because, like, we don't even spend that much time in charms class. And it's so annoying because, like, the times we do spend in charms class, most of them are like Harry, Ron, and Hermione being like, oh, this is the perfect class to have side conversations in. So they're in the back of the classroom having convos while everybody else is practicing their charms, and Flitwick is going around, like, checking everybody out. And it's, like, ridiculous that Flitwick is, like, not in the series as much. And charms is my favorite class, and that's another reason why I think Flitwick is super underrated. And we know that Flitwick is incredible with dueling and charm work, and so he kind of has his time to shine a little bit in Deathly Hallows at the end. And with the Christmas decorations, he does all that. So he has some cool moments, but I really think that, like, you know, Harry should have had more contact with Flitwick, or there should have been more meaningful charms classes instead of, like, oh, this is a class we can all hang out in and talk in, because it's kind of disrespectful. That's the thing too. Like I know when I was in school, like, the teachers who were the nicest were the ones that the students messed around in their class because they thought that they could get by with, you know, screwing around. And that's exactly what we see here with Flitwick, because that's the class, like I said, that the trio really mess around in. And it's kind of disrespectful because, like, Snape doesn't let that fly. McGonagall doesn't let it fly. Loser Umbridge wouldn't let it fly. Lockhart would never let it fly. I mean, Lockhart just is an idiot, and he wouldn't notice anyway. So they can talk all they want in his classes. But Flitwick is just so nice that, like, whenever they're screwing around, like, Flitwick would just be like, all right, let's talk more action. Like, he doesn't really, like, yell at anybody or really tell anybody off, and that's so incredible for a teacher to be so kind and caring and, you know, treat their students with kindness even when they're not being as respectful. So I think Flitwick is just kind of disrespected by the trio and kind of in the background. McGonagall's kind of in the front. Snape's one that's up in the front. Sprout's kind of in the background too, but Flitwick, and being the head of Ravenclaw House, I know I'm going to defend Jess here that Ravenclaw doesn't really get that much respect in the books, just like Hufflepuff doesn't. So I guess that's why Sprout and Flitwick are two that we don't really see as much, but I personally think Flitwick is an incredible professor, so talented, so kind, a loving person, and he deserved way better. So Team Flitwick here. And that is the end of my opinions. I hope you guys enjoyed. So yeah, Thank you so much for watching.